Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast, where we explore the sweet, silly, strange, and sublime aspects of being a lead dad in a world where men, or the go-to parent, aren't always accepted at work, among their friends, or in the community for what they're doing. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. Our podcast is just one of the many things we produce each week at the Company of Dads. We have various features, including the Lead Dad of the Week. We have our community, both online and also some in-person events. We have a new resource library for all fathers. The one-stop shop for all of this is our newsletter, The Dad. So sign up at thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. Today, my guest is J.R. Havlan. Some of you may remember him from episode 19. He's an 8-time Emmy Award-winning writer for The Daily Show when Jon Stewart was a host. He's a father of 2 and a husband of 1. He's a Manhattan lead dad with a serious love of golf. We're talking to him today for none of these reasons. We're talking to him because this summer he left his Emmys and golf clubs behind and went to sleepaway camp. Not as some Will Ferrell-like giant camper, but as the director of communications with a staff of 7. And he's here today as kids head back to school to shed some light on what happens at sleepaway camp when the kids are away and the parents get to play. JR, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Did you bring any of your Emmys with you to,
I did.
Plop down on your desk and command respect? Be like, bitch.
Hilarious question. See, you thought of that. You thought that might be a fun thing to do, right? So I did not right out of the gate, no. But they have a break. So this place you can go for 7 weeks, the place I was at, or you can go for 4 weeks. There's a 4-week session and a 3-week session, or you can be there for the whole 7 weeks. So my son went for 4 weeks because he was already signed up for a different camp for later in the summer. And my daughter, who had been signed up for this camp for the second session, also went to the first session once I decided to work there because they got to go for free, which is why you work at a summer camp. So during the break, my wife came to get my son, and by that time, people had kind of like caught wind of my checkered past. And so I talked to the director and I said, do you want me to, I can bring one out, because it was one at the lake and that's where Ellen was. And so, yeah, she brought the trophy out and we just kept it in the office and everybody got a huge kick out of it. People would come by to visit it. It was really fun. Yeah.
Because by that point, they probably didn't believe you. They're like, who is this guy? Did he really win it? Like, show me the Emmy. They're probably yelling like,
Well, I mean, look, we live in a digital age, Paul. I'm sure you're aware of that. Podcast and everything. But so no, it's you don't have to go far to confirm my story or anybody's story.
All right. How in the world did this job come about, and why did you want to do it?
It came about because we signed our kids up for summer camps that we kind of researched based on friends, input and experiences and what we thought our kids might want. So we signed up Zoe for this camp called Chestnut Lake, which is in a place called Beach Lake, Pennsylvania. It's about 2.5 hours, kind of north west of the city in the Poconos. And then we signed up my son for a different camp that was far more focused on the arts. And so they were signed up for these camps and we started getting newsletters from them, of course. And one of the newsletters from the Chestnut Lake said, come work with us. And my wife decided to click on that. And of course, I'm not going to go be like a counselor and sleep in the bottom bunk under some 21-year-old Austrian kid, right? But the thing popped up, communications director. And I was like, well, that's like a legit job. So it seems.
Yeah.
And she pointed out what she knew, which was that normally the way they compensate you is by letting your kids go there for free. And as you, I'm sure know, and many of our lead dads know, summer camp ain't free,
Not free. It's expensive.
And it ain't cheap. Yeah. So that was enticing, and to the opportunity to do something and be there with them. And then, so I signed up for it, sent in a thing and had to fill out this really long like application that was more geared towards the counselors and stuff.
Yeah.
All kinds of questions about where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, I said, I don't know. You know,
Did you answer it seriously, or could you resist?
Yeah, I mean, no. At one point, I started joking because I had to. They're asking me questions like, you know, like that, like where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said 5 years. What do you see yourself? You know, I said 5 years older. You know, is where I see myself in 5 years.
How does the interview go? Like, you can't just fill out the application.
So then, yeah. So then,
did you get nervous? Were you a little nervous going into the interview?
No, because a little bit, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because I also had to submit with this long application references, which I have since. My references, if I got called the people from my last job, they're like, "What? You know, how do you spell your name again?" So I just I really just got a few friends to, you know, and just put their names on there. And one of them got
you're saying that like Jon Stewart wouldn't vouch for you? Like
Jon Stewart wouldn't vouch for your my summer camp job. So one of them, they called one of them, and the guy like had to fill out all kinds of stuff, but he was really cool about it. So that was nice and it was helpful. And then they called me, and you know, there's just sort of like Zoom, you know, interviews started. And my only concern at that point was, what if I don't get this job? Like then, you know, that might, the most nerve-wracking thing about it was like, what if I don't get it? Like, it was weird because I haven't really applied for a job in a while, you know?
Did you like for the Zoom interview, did you have like all 8 of the Emmys around you so they were glowing off of
that's because you know how I roll. Yeah.
I mean, that would impress them.
Yeah. No, it was legitimately like, you know, I don't want to get turned down. This seems like,
of course.
But of course, like that was put aside very quickly because the guy who runs the camp seemed genuinely thrilled that I had, you know, signed up for this.
Right, and also so you're an adult. You're an adult. You're not a 21-year-old college kid. You're not a 25-year-old guy just out of school. You're an adult, and you know,
right.
You trusted.
And that's what he wanted, was somebody to run this kind of department, which had sort of fallen into kind of, you know, not exactly disarray, but it wasn't at the top of its game in large part because a lot of things were going wrong during COVID for the camps and stuff like that, and they didn't have the system in place that they wanted, and they wanted to change that up, and they put a lot of resources into it and increased the number on the staff and brought me in to run the staff and brought back a guy they had there a few years ago who basically ran it, but when they had like 3 people running around with cameras trying to get stuff done. But it was good to have him because he helped me get things off the ground. And you know, so he said, well, the job's yours. And then when I got that, then the kids, and part of the reason I took it was because both kids agreed before I said yes to go to the first session, which means Zoe went for a full 7 weeks and Parker went for 4 weeks. And that's a, you know, not only a good chunk of savings from not paying for that, but also the kids were not around. They would have been doing other stuff, and you know, let alone eating food and stuff. Yeah. So there was it was significant, and Ellen got the chance to have a summer. Her brother was up at the house, and she got to spend all kinds of time with him, and she was running around doing all the stuff you might do if you suddenly, and like, you know, without expectation, as a parent of a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, had no one around in the summer.
It's like she ran away from her family, but with none of the shame or like social stigma.
Yeah, her family ran away from her for a little while.
Ran away from her. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's playing tennis and doing whatever, you know, because she works at a school, so she has the summer off, you know.
Yeah. Now, look, you know, any communication director's job at any company, any organization in America is to paint the best picture of where you are. But, you know, look, in some ways that seems completely antithetical to what a comedy writer does, which is, you know, poking fun at the powerful. Like, how did you do this? How did you swing? I mean, did you get sent to the camp director's office for being a wise guy? Like, how does this work? How do you know, the other part of your personality here?
Well, I'll tell you, it was not like some kind of difficult transition. I wasn't sitting there just wanting to tell jokes and rip on the camp and do all this stuff, while I was there. And I wasn't even exactly sure what they were going to expect from me. I thought I might be doing more correspondence and writing for, little updates and stuff like that. But the director, who'd always been doing this all along, was still up for doing that and wanted to do that. So he kept doing that. And I really ended up just running the department where we were really getting photographs of all the kids and then posting them. That was my main duty. And I spent a lot of time doing that, scheduling everybody, making sure this got filled in. There were a lot of times we didn't have, we tried to make it equal how many photos we had. So I had to run around and take photos myself, which I didn't do every day. And so it was really, I was responsible for posting on this really great app that most camps have now called Campanion, where they have facial recognition. So you sign up and you just get photos of your kid. If you want to look through the rest, you can, but you can also just look through your tagged photos of your kid. And so I did that, but I really, I took it seriously. I take everything I do seriously. I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it well. And so I was looking at thousands of pictures a day and going through them and, ignoring some and getting rid of others and culling through them and editing sometimes, straightening them out a little bit, and basically using as my guideline something that nobody else there on my staff had, which was, would I want to see my kid in this picture?
Right.
And that was it. And that's all I needed. And it was a kind of a gift to the process that anybody without kids would not be able to bring along.
Right. All right. This is a little disappointing. So you're telling me at no point, like when they're playing some sort of camp prank, you didn't like step in there and say, look, kids, let me show you how to do this. This is the better way.
Oh yeah.
Like,
no, in my moments among other people, I would crack wise when I got a chance, but I wasn't also going in like, lampshade on my head, trying to prove something to all the kids. Daddy still got it.
He brings it.
I didn't need to bother with that. I had a job to do there. And honestly, I was really busy and in a separate kind of room. We had an office, and it was kind of like a little bit away from a lot of other stuff. So there were, I really didn't mingle that much. And a lot of times, one of the things, the schedule was very, was filled up for the kids. Like there was always something for them to do, and they were meant to do these things throughout the day. And every evening, the entire camp would get together for, a nighttime activity that was always like some kind of different thing, but the entire camp would get together. And I often wouldn't be at that because that was the time when I was really trying to put together all the photos that had been taken during the day and get them out before the end of the night, because then we had to start all over. So you just could not get behind.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there for a lot of those things. So a lot of people didn't really get to know me, or I didn't get to know them. I was just trying to do the job.
All right. Let's talk about what the parents want to hear here. What's it really like for their kids when they're away? What is the experience like? And you obviously had one view of it with your kids going to sleepaway camp, but now you're at the sleepaway camp with them. What's the experience like?
It's going to be different for every kid, but I think in a nutshell, it's even better than the parents hope for, because their kids are having experiences that that as parents, you can't provide for them, really.
Like what?
Well, I mean, by that, I mean that they're having experiences on their own, making decisions on their own. They don't have anybody hovering over them, although there are a handful of parents who continue to try to do that throughout the summer. And they just can't help themselves.
Right.
But, you go there to have experiences. Now, like I was saying, like camps are very different. Like I think a lot of the camps are very different. Now, this camp that I was at, Chestnut Lake, was is sort of a sister camp to a place called Trails End, which is the owner of Trails End is part owner of Chestnut Lake, and they're right next to each other. Trails End is a slightly bigger camp. They have a lot of the same kind of programming, but they're 7 weeks only. Okay, and Chestnut has the 4 and 3 week options as well. And then Parker, in the next half of the summer, went to a place called French Woods, which is a pretty well-known art camp. Very close to where, very close in the same area as Chestnut Lake. I think it's literally in a county that has like 47 camps or something. It's really crazy. But I got the chance to go over to Trails End for a day and check it out. And, it felt very similar. The layout was a little different, but the things felt very similar because they were basically, they kind of, Chestnut learned off of them, but now they're becoming their own thing. Right. Yeah. So, and I was only there for a day and I didn't really see programming going on and stuff, but it felt similar. Then I went to French Woods, and it was a completely different place because it's an arts camp, and they really, like, you go there and you choose a major, and by the end of the 3 weeks, you're doing a play, Right. You're in a play, you're doing, you're performing a concert because you took rock band, you're doing trapeze because you took circus, you're showing your movie because you took filmmaking. And so they bring you in to do these specific things, and then they make sure that you get them done. It was pretty tight. It was interesting. It was very cool for Parker. He loved it.
Yeah, I mean, part of what you were doing though with sending the photos home was just sort of capture real time the experience that those kids are having, the joy that they're having, because you and I both have kids, 5 kids between us, and sometimes you ask them, how was that, and like, fine, oh, it's okay, unless you see them in the moment, and then you see the joy that they're having. When you think of what parents would like to really know about, how their kids grow at this particular camp. How was it? Like when you looked at some of those kids, even your own kids, like from, day 1 to the end of 4 weeks to the end of 7 weeks?
I think a camp like Chestnut, their main purpose is to help kids kind of define their limits, to an extent, and then push those limits, and have people there to guide them and help them along the way. It's really like finding yourself a little bit, like being comfortable outside of your comfort zone. Like that's what I meant to say is comfort zone, like to find the comfort zone and then kind of work outside of it. And so, they have the basketball and lacrosse and soccer and swimming in a lakefront and a obstacle, like a ropes course and tennis. And they put on 2 plays a play each session. And it was at a different level than French Woods, but it's not what they do, but they did do it. And so kids got the chance, and the plays were great. They were fun to watch. Yeah. And kids who'd never been in a play got to be in a play. Kids who never played lacrosse got to play lacrosse, and they see what they like. And then you're also just going there to learn how to be with other people and accomplish things with other people. I mean, a lot of the programming that they have and a lot of the stuff that they do at night, they do it specifically so that the kids kind of are working together towards some kind of common goal. It's just like, even if you're not on a team, you're part of a team. And that's what that camp is all about, is just learning to be the person that might not realize you are yet. And that's a big step for a kid, and a step that the influence of a parent's presence doesn't always facilitate.
Yeah, that's saying you talked about the parents second time. I mean, what makes a good camp parent? You said a couple of them were still hovering over, but what makes a good supportive parent when his or her children go off to sleepaway camp?
They communicate with them as frequently kind of as possible, given whatever communications the camps have. Now, many of the camps these days don't let the kids carry their phones around. They only give them access to email, if they give them access to email at all, on every once in a while. and there really aren't phones. You can't just be phoning home or calling them up or anything like that, right? So you don't have these opportunities to really communicate with them as regularly as you might when they're hanging out in your house over the summertime, right? But when you can, you should write them a letter, find out what's going on. I mean, a big part of why, get them talking about their experiences, because a big part of the photographs as well is to kind of tell the story. It's going to make the parents feel comfortable. Oh, there they are. They're with friends. They're smiling. They're having a good time. They're doing so. Wow, I never even knew he could throw a baseball. And there he is. He's doing all these things. And that also allows us to help the parents facilitate a conversation with their kids that they can do over email, to ask them questions about, I saw you doing this, I saw you doing that, how was that, and what else are you doing? And so they have questions to ask them, and the kids have something to talk about. And so I think it's just kind of being supportive and encouraging them to continue trying these things, and meeting people and being kind, and also getting through tough spots. Not every kid is comfortable socially or just to be away from their parents. I mean, there's a lot of homesickness. This is going to be every single camp. There are going to be some kids who are just crying right away. There are kids that are crying when they get dropped off, and then because they don't want to let go of their parents. And then at the end of it, they're crying when they're getting picked up because they don't want to let go of their counselors. I mean, that happened a lot with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it can't happen if the parent doesn't let the kid go. If you love something, let it go, right? It's not something that we're used to doing a lot of times, especially at that age. I mean, there are campers there that are 7, 8 years old for 7 weeks. It's incredible.
Holy cow. Yeah.
So, I mean, not a lot of them. I think that there are some that are there are several groups like Zoe's 10 or 11, and there were 2 groups below her group. So they were 10 and 9, but then there are some kids who are 8 and 7. They can come early if they want. There are a lot of kids that are the children of people who are working there. Right. They don't necessarily have to be a sibling, but there are a lot of siblings there as well. And then look, there are kids who are like super kind and bring you right into the fold. There are kids who are just kind of like mean kids, and they get there, they do whatever they do. There wasn't a lot of that. I mean, I didn't see that end of like camp much at all, because I wasn't out there seeing it. But according to my son and my daughter, there was not much of that to speak of, which was great to hear.
What makes a bad camp parent?
Just clinging on too much. Making sure that they're doing what they want them to do, trying to control the kids still from afar. And trying to control that's just for the kid themselves, because the kid takes on, it's like a dog, takes on the anxiety of its owner, like it's the kid is feeling like pressured by their parents to do a certain thing or to be a certain way or to tell them something that they can't tell them. And so it's just like too much anxiety. An anxious parent. I mean, it's not just a camp parent, it's just an anxious person. A lot of people are anxious. If you think you're going to have 500 kids at a camp and none of their parents are going to be anxious people, you're dead wrong. And those anxious people, they boil up to the surface pretty quickly, and you know who they are, and they make you anxious. So they must make their kids anxious, and they're just trying to make sure that this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. And why do they seem, it was hard with the pictures because you say you want to paint the prettiest picture that you can. Now that wasn't necessarily hard because we had a lot of great pictures of kids having fun. I mean, that's what they do there. Right. So it's not like it's a lie, but I'm not going to post a picture of some kid crying, right?
You could have, like your own kids, you could have sent them home to your wife, right? Like,
nobody,
hey, Zoe and Parker are both crying.
No place does that, but we also didn't really have a lot of pictures of children crying. But you would have pictures where, and this is where my experience as a parent came in handy, which was, there were a lot of pictures where the kids are just posing, and doing all this stuff, right? And those get tiresome after a while. But you get a lot of those because they're posing and it's much easier to take a picture like that.
Right.
We wanted to get I tried to get as many action shots as I could in there. I tried to get other shots of like just them working on on clay, or something, or just working in the wood shop or something like that, where they don't really have any sort of expression on their face other than concentration and focus, which to me, I want to see. I'm like, I love to look at pictures of my kids focusing on something, it's fabulous. So you'd put those in there, but sometimes like you'd have a great picture and there's a kid in the back who's just not in the picture. He's not necessarily doing anything at the time. And the anxious parent, defines that as is he okay? Is everything okay? I saw this picture. Is he okay? Can I talk to him? It's like, no, he's fine. And you can't talk to him.
But that's why you instituted some sort of Soviet era photoshopping, right? And you would just like blur all those kids out of the photo.
Yeah, no, didn't bother blurring faces, but it was sort of like as helpful as the Companion app is. And the facial recognition is wildly accurate. So if you caught like this much of a kid's face, that knows who it is and he posts it. So even blurry background shots, the kids would be in them. And there was every once in a while, I knew I could tell just by looking after a while, I could tell that a kid was having a good time or was really bummed out. And sometimes I would see kids that seemed bummed out, but I wouldn't even know for sure that I was right about that. But I could kind of tell. And I would still use my own radar to post those or not. But there were times when, there's a great picture and there's a kid behind him that doesn't look right. And sometimes I just wouldn't post it, but mainly because we had a couple of other pictures similar to that. And if sometimes there were kids in the back that didn't look right, and I posted it anyway because the other picture is very good. And I know that kid. I've seen that kid out having fun. I just got done looking at 10 other pictures of him having fun. And so if the parent wants to focus on that one and think the kid there's something wrong, there's nothing you can do about that. Right. And I'm not going to deprive other parents of good photos because a few of them are a little bit nutty,
Beyond the photos, talk to me about, you're there for 7 weeks. You go in with a certain expectation. What was it like for you as a parent, to be in this role? Like, how are you changed by the 7 weeks at Sleepaway Camp?
Well, I lost 10 pounds.
You look great. Yeah, that's, I'm jealous of that.
I already put 5 back on. But
you gotta step up for the camp. You didn't lose 10 pounds because the food is horrible. You lost 10 pounds because you were so active at camp, right? Well,
I was active. No, that's true. I mean, I could have kept eating. I could have ate just fine. The food was fine. The food was not fantastic. The food was not horrible. The food was better than you may have expected in a lot of cases.
Dine there. Come on.
And they had, they had a good salad bar. And I was mainly that's all I did. I would run in, make a salad and come back because all of the meals were scheduled at the times when I was busiest. So that was another reason I didn't meet a lot of people. I was not hanging out at the tables eating with everybody else, but I hadn't worked for a while. So working around the clock 6 days a week right out of the gate was a challenge, just physically and mentally, to stay focused and to just kind of keep up with it. But it was also stimulating, I mean, I was doing something. I had a job, I had a mission, and I wanted to get it done right. And so I worked very hard to do that. I didn't see my kids much unless I kind of went out of my way to do that. The most I saw them was at the meals, and I would just run in and get mine and run out. But I'd say hi, and they'd come up and say hi. I talked to Zoe more than I talked to Parker because it's just the nature of the relationship. Like he doesn't talk as much or come up to me as much, right? But at one point I said to him, I haven't even talked to you. I just realized I haven't even talked to you for like a week. So can you leave lunch a little early and we'll go sit down somewhere and talk? He said, yeah, sure. And we did. And he just unloaded, told me all kinds of everything that's going on. And it was great. So we did that like a couple of times a week till the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. And it was, there's just a lot of activity. It was just interesting to see a new thing, like try to develop a new thing and make something better than it was, and see how a place like this is run. I mean, I think the thing that I learned the most is that, that can hopefully be a message to parents out there sending their kids to camp is you got to respect the effort that goes into making one of these places run. It is monumental. I mean, it's just super crazy from well before your kids get there, well before your kids get there, just in the staffing and getting everybody on board and teaching them what they need to do and all the scheduling. And we had a lot of rain this summer, so the schedule changed every time because there's a ton of outdoor activities. I mean, the first couple of weeks it rained probably every other day. And that just completely screws up the schedule and made it very hard for us to get pictures, because all of a sudden they're just back to their bunks where we didn't take pictures, or they're in the theater watching a movie or something where you can't take pictures. And, so that it made that hard. But it was also just the level at which they operate. And I'm sure that all camps are, have their strengths and their weaknesses when it comes to like not only operating the camp on a daily basis, but communicating to the parents how that's going, and answering any questions they might have, not only, at the moment, but, in advance. It's a ton of work, and it takes certain people to do it. And not everybody makes it through the summer, that I'm sure this happens at every camp, every other camp as well. You get a bunch of kids coming over from Europe, and I say kids, but they're in their 20s or whatever, and most of them are from the UK and around Europe. And they're coming out here so that they can work at this and not make a bunch of money, but get out to America and then go spend the next 2 or 3 weeks, going to New York and LA and flying around and going all kinds of different places, which is what they do. And so it was, but a lot of them, or a number of them, don't make it through. They have to be let go because maybe they've done something wrong. It was probably more often where they just couldn't swing it. They're like, I got to get out of here. I just can't do this, because it's a lot of work, and you have to be in a frame of mind like, I'm here to help kids have a good time. I'm here to guide them the best I can and to support them the best I can. And the vast majority of these employees at these camps, that's what they do, and they do it well. And they're doing parents huge favors, and oftentimes are going to end up teaching your kid or getting your kid off, on a route that you may not have gotten them off on. It's like, it's pretty amazing, big deal.
This has been great, JR. Thanks for coming back on the podcast. One last question, and it's a one-word answer. It's going to be 2 words. If you could summarize like the experience that your son had in a word, and the experience that your daughter had in a word at this camp, what would those words be?
My son was fine, and my daughter had fun.
Perfect way to end.
And but before that, I wanted to mention the book that I want to work on based on this experience.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That hopefully we can post some stuff on the Company of Dads website.
You give the teaser here before we go. Give the working title of the book, which I love. I love the working title.
I didn't go into it looking for a project necessarily, but having gotten a number of emails from parents sent directly to me, some of them great, some of them good, some of them bad, some of them annoying. It made me think of the phrase "letters from camp," where you would get letters from a kid who's at camp and kind of tell the story of the kid. I want to write a book called "Letters to Camp," written supposedly by varying levels of parents with varying levels of anxiety about their kids being there, and based on some of the stuff that I not only received, but some of the experiences that I had. And I think that the purpose of it is going to be obviously for a good laugh, but also as a little bit of insight, not only on the human psyche in general, but on how parents can sort of get a little bit out of that on how to be a good camp parent, because a lot of people send their kids to camp, and it'll be a little insight on what you can do right and what you can do wrong.
I love it. And I can just imagine now, the type A parent, like, Mr. Havlan, I really appreciate your photographs, but my uncle is a cinematographer, and he said you could use some work on the lighting of Little Johnny.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you in a nutshell that the most of the emails I got began with the phrase, I don't want to be one of those parents, but.
It's the but. It's always the but.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be.
Yeah, I'm going to be. Here it comes. Get ready for it.
J.R. Havlan, thank you again for joining me on the Company of Dads podcast.
You're welcome, man. It's always good. Always fun.
Thank you for listening to the Company of Dads podcast. I also want to thank the people who make this podcast and everything else that we do at the Company of Dads possible. Helder Mira, who is our audio producer. Lindsay Decker, who handles all of our social media. Terry Brennan, who's helping us with the newsletter and audience acquisition. Emily Servin, who is our web maestro. And of course, Evan Roosevelt, who is working side by side with me in many of the things that we do here at the Company of Dads. It's a great team, and we're just trying to bring you the best in fatherhood. Remember, the one-stop shop for everything is our newsletter, The Dad. Sign up at thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. Thank you again for listening.